It is the best judgment of the Boulder Police Department that this is a one-time occurrence. The killing of Jonbenet does not appear to be linked to any other similar event.
Good evening, I'm Lyndon Souls. For the next half hour, we're going to piece together what we know about the killing of a little girl named JonBenét Ramsey, and perhaps more importantly, what we do not know. If you've been following this story, you may have gathered that nobody knows very much at all. Police may have a suspect in mind, but if they do, they aren't sharing that information. And there are very few sources who are talking, which only fuels the speculation. Who could have done it? Who could have entered the house without breaking in? Who killed JonBenét Ramsey? Tonight, for the first time, we hear from the Boulder Police Chief. We also hear from JonBenét's parents, excerpts from the only interview they've given since the killing of their daughter. We are going to tell you what we know, and you're going to hear what various sources are telling us and other news organizations. And we'd like to warn you that some of the information seeping out may only cloud an already complicated riddle. So we ask you to watch with a critical eye. We begin with the only journalist to interview the Ramseys, CNN's Brian Cabell. He joins us live in Boulder. Brian?
Good evening, Lyndon. It's been exactly 14 days now since little JonBenét Ramsey was found dead in the basement of her home. Since then, as you say, we've had an awful lot of questions. We've had some answers. We've had a lot of wild speculation. We've had a number of news leaks. And we've had some spin control, as you mentioned. What we can tell you is this. The Ramseys, we believe, are in Boulder. They are at a friend's house not far from their home. They have not returned to their home yet. They have not yet sat down with the police for a formal interview. They may not sit down anytime soon, from what we've been told. The police are devoting about 1/4 of their force to investigating this homicide. And for the first time tonight, the police chief, Tom Kobe, sat down and talked to the community about the homicide. And he said they don't have to be afraid.
We were not living in fear before this incident, and we cannot be forced to live in fear now. It is the best judgment of the Boulder Police Department that this is a one-time occurrence. The killing of Jonbenet does not appear to be linked to any other similar event. What this means is that we do not believe we have a serial situation to deal with. Should the Boulder community be concerned and vigilant? Yes. Should we be living in fear? No. Can I guarantee that this will not occur again? No, I cannot. There have been many stories and much speculation about who killed JonBenét. This is an area that I know will be explored in greater detail in the questions to follow. Let me offer perspective on this issue. Prejudging and media hype have never solved a crime. Crime solving requires vigilant and careful police work, diligent and careful police work. That is exactly what the Boulder Police Department is committed to doing. It is a natural response to a tragedy like this for the community to want to know immediately who is responsible. It is often an effort to assure ourselves that such a tragedy will never happen to us. The reality of the situation is that often these types of investigations take time to solve. The integrity and the competence of the men and women of the Boulder Police Department have been challenged. Let me first say that I have never had the privilege of working with more competent, dedicated professionals. They are getting the job done. We will not lose the focus of this investigation to respond to meaningless and unfounded remarks.
More than 30 of Kobe's officers have been working overtime for the last 2 weeks. He says, even though they don't have a suspect, there are no arrests yet, they will find out what happened.
Let me be very clear about the focus of the Boulder Police Department in this matter. Our allegiance is solely to JonBenét Ramsey. We have a mission. We have dedicated ourselves to bringing justice the person or persons responsible for her death. Everything else is secondary, and we will not be deterred.
After Chief Kobe made his initial statement, he did take some questions from 5 local reporters.
It's been 2 weeks since their daughter was murdered, and in those 2 weeks, we've seen only one highly orchestrated appearance by them hugging a bishop on the steps of a church. It would appear to the average person that they have some reason to protect somebody. When will you decide that enough is enough, and would you consider the grand jury?
Mike, I think you're being a little harsh. Have you ever lost a child? And do you know what your reaction would be in that circumstance? And I think what you're getting to, you're getting into an area that I just think is unfair to pursue.
We've had numerous fathers. We've had numerous fathers who have lost their children say, we went to the police and offered everything to help the investigation.
And that was their case, and that was their situation, and that is not the situation that the Ramseys have found themselves in.
Let me fill you in now on what's happened today. Not much in the way of news has come down. There was a report, it's been disclosed, that there was a 911 call made from the Ramsey home 3 days before JonBenét was found dead. That would have been on the 23rd, the night of the 23rd, early evening, as a matter of fact. A 911 call was made. There was no particular person on that call. Apparently was hung up. Police went out to the scene, knocked on the door. No one was there. So nothing further is known as to who made that call or why that call was made. Again, a number of questions, very few answers. Also, we've been told this evening that the family will be making a statement sometime a little later this evening, perhaps sometime within the next half hour. Lyndon?
Brian, as we continue our CNN special presentation, CNN's Brian Cabell will walk us through the traumatic chain of events, from the discovery of the ransom note to the developments of today. Welcome back. 2 weeks ago today, a 3-page ransom note unraveled the lives of John and Patricia Ramsey. The note said their 6-year-old daughter had been kidnapped from her bedroom overnight, but would be returned in exchange for $118,000. 8 hours later, the horrible truth emerged. And new details have been trickling out ever since. CNN's Brian Cabell is in Boulder, Colorado, following the story, and he joins us with the latest. Brian?
Lyndon, this started out as a simple but tragic murder of a child beauty queen, but then questions arose, curiosity arose, and suddenly the media descended on Boulder. We are told now that as many as 300 media representatives may be here right now following this story. What we're going to do right now is take you through this story day by day, starting with day number 1.
Thursday, December 26th, and the Ramsey home is festively decorated. Little JonBenét Ramsey, the winner of several children's pageants, had just received a bicycle as a Christmas gift the day before. 5:30 a.m., JonBenét's mother, Patsy, goes downstairs and finds an apparent ransom note, 3 pages long.
I couldn't read the whole thing. I just gotten up. We were it was the day after Christmas, and we were going to go visiting. And it was quite early in the morning, and I'd gotten dressed and was on my way to the kitchen to make some coffee. And we have a back staircase from the bedroom areas, and I always come down that staircase, and I'm usually the first one down. And the note was lying across the 3 pages across the run of one of the stair treads. And it was kind of dimly lit. It was very early in the morning. And I started to read it, and it was addressed to John. It said, Mr. Ramsey. And it said, we have your daughter. And it just wasn't registering. And I may have gotten through another sentence, like, we have your daughter, and I don't know if I got any further than that. And I immediately ran back upstairs and pushed open her door and she was not in her bed. And I screamed for John.
The note asked for $118,000 and told the Ramseys to wait for a phone call.
We'd waited until after the time that the call was supposed to have been made to us. And one of the detectives asked me and my friend who was there to go through every inch of the house, see if there's anything that was unusual or abnormal that looked out of place.
Looking for clues,
I think she was asking us to do that more to give us something to do, to occupy our mind. And so we started in the basement, and we're just looking, and we have one room in the basement that when I opened the door, there are no windows in that room, and I turned the light on, and
she was in the room.
It was her. I'd hoped that she was still okay, but I could tell that she probably wasn't. I screamed and carried her upstairs.
JonBenét Ramsey, 6 years old, had been strangled, sexually assaulted, had her mouth duct taped, her hands bound, her skull fractured. Friday, December 27th, the investigation of Boulder's first and only homicide of the year intensifies.
I can tell you at this point, there is no information that lead us towards any suspect or identifiable suspect at this time.
The community learns more about the Ramseys. John is a prominent businessman, president of a computer company. Patsy is a former Miss West Virginia. Saturday, December 28th, the Ramsey family heads to the police station to answer questions and give hair, blood, and handwriting samples.
Well, Patsy and I, Burke, our son, who's 9, every family member.
Including your 2 elder children. Were you offended by that?
It was difficult, but, you know, they need to know, I mean, our handprints are all over our home. So they need to know if there are other ones.
One of the things they told us, we had some initial reactions as to who might have been involved, and they said, "Oh, that's good, but we don't want to draw the focus in tight yet. We've got to look at everything."
Sunday, December 29th, as the Ramsey family flies to Atlanta where they used to live, 30 Boulder officers are now working the case. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation lends support by conducting forensic tests. Monday, the 30th, a city spokesperson tries to quiet any alarm in Boulder.
We have had some questions about whether or not people in the neighborhood should feel concerned. We want to let them know that there are still police in that neighborhood 24 hours a day. There is no need for a special concern.
It's also revealed that the Ramseys have hired attorneys to represent them. Tuesday, December 31st, 200 family members and friends attend an emotional funeral service at the family's former church in Atlanta.
To be honest, the mind cannot grasp and the heart refuses to accept the death of one so young, who is suddenly taken from us by cruelty and malice by some unworthy person or persons.
JonBenét's body is buried in nearby Marietta next to her half-sister who had been killed in a car accident 4 years ago. In the days ahead, a sea of flowers would appear at JonBenét's gravesite, left by anonymous mourners. January 1st, New Year's Day. As the mystery grows, John and Patsy Ramsey talk to CNN.
If I were a resident of Boulder, I would tell my friends to keep your baby close to you.
The Ramseys also announced they will hire their own investigators and offer a reward for help in finding JonBenét's killer. Thursday, January 2nd. 5 Boulder cops have arrived in the Atlanta area because the family used to live here. They conduct interviews and background checks. In Boulder, the city's mayor, having heard Mrs. Ramsey's warning the day before, tries to downplay any alarm.
There was no visible sign of forced entry. The body was found in a place where people are saying someone had to know the house. So there isn't a crazed killer on the loose wandering the streets of Boulder.
Friday, January 3rd. As police continue to scour the Ramseys' Boulder home for clues, the Ramseys fly home. Some radio talk shows are now rife with speculation the Ramseys might be involved in their daughter's murder.
Nauseating beyond belief.
You know, America has just been hurt so deeply with the tragic things that have happened. The young woman who drove her children into the water, and we don't know what happened with the O.J. Simpson. And I mean, America is suffering because they have lost faith in the American family.
Saturday, January 4th. Boulder police are now in Michigan at the Ramseys' summer home looking for any evidence of threats against the family. At their Boulder home, police finally removed the crime scene tape surrounding it. Sunday, January 5th. The Ramseys, staying with friends in town, attend church. The media have descended on Boulder in full force. A public relations consultant hired by the Ramseys announces the church visit and tries to keep the journalists in line. In the meantime, the private investigators hired by the family are now searching the Ramseys' house. Monday, January 6th. Children return from vacation to school in Boulder, and in gentle terms, hear why their classmate, little JonBenét, will not be returning. Tuesday, January 7th. Police announced the search warrant of the Boulder home has been sealed. Evidence seized from the house will not be made public for at least a month. Still no suspects.
We have never contended that anyone is or is not a suspect. We have not ruled anybody in, nor have we ruled anybody out.
Wednesday, January 8th. Leaks in the case, many unsubstantiated, continue to dribble in. There's word of a practice ransom note. A report that the family's been ruled out as having written the note. Even speculation that a foreign group may have written it. But 2 weeks have now passed. The killer of JonBenét Ramsey is still at large. And people wonder who could have killed this little girl.
So where we stand now, we have no arrest, we have no suspects. The police are working overtime. The family is grieving and under suspicion. In just a moment, we'll be talking to one of the men who has some suspicions himself. Back to you. With me right now, Peter Boyles. He's a radio talk show host at KHOW in Denver. I've been listening to him for the last couple of days. What you said repeatedly, Peter, is that this doesn't add up.
It doesn't
what,
add,
what does that mean exactly?
There's too many holes in it. There's too many chinks in the armor. We have spoken with so many people, including someone I know you know, Mark Kloss, the father of Polly Kloss, the tragedy in Petaluma, California, the murder of Polly committed by Richard Davis. And he talked about what happened to him, and he said the day after he had submitted to a lie detector given by the FBI, I asked him if he had hired or if a private investigators were brought in. He said, yes, I hired the private investigator. In the case here, we have the Ramsey family hiring their attorney.
It's their right. It is their right.
Oh, absolutely. No one denies their right. And I don't think you're going to hear anyone say they don't have a right to do these things.
I've heard on your show wild speculation from your callers as well as from you. You certainly seem to be pointing a finger at this family, which certainly seems to be grieving at this point. They've lost their daughter, and yet I hear repeatedly that something is fishy here. This family must be involved.
You've been here a week. What do you think?
I think they have an absolute right to do what they're doing. I think we have to be careful with facts and speculation, and we hear an awful lot of speculation on your show from your callers.
I'm not responsible for what people say any more than I'm responsible or you're responsible for what people think in this audience tonight. Talk radio is a conduit for what people think. It's an electric bar room. It's an editorial page in the morning paper. This is what people are thinking. I know that the people who have these thoughts aren't alone.
Do you question the conduct of the police in this case?
Yes, and it has the morning paper here in town has as well. What happened in the first 8 to 12 hours? Indeed. Was it a crime scene? Why wasn't it treated like a crime scene? There's a lot of speculation, and we heard it again tonight in a press conference with the chief, a local reporter comparing and contrasting another case, a murder case here in Boulder, where daily almost the police gave reports to the media, way before there was any conclusions. Why aren't they doing that in this case? There's a lot of question marks and a lot of ifs.
Is it a question of wealth? Some people have said these people are wealthy.
Well, I would ask you this question. If this were in a working-class blue-collar neighborhood or a minority neighborhood, any city in the United States of America, and a dead child was found trussed up in the basement, do you think that that family would be handled like this family is being handled?
Have the media dealt with this responsibly?
I heard that tonight from the chief, as I think you did as well, that their critique was it's almost the fault of the media, and the media has to back off. I don't know. I think the media has been very, very, very good in this situation thus far.
Okay. Peter Boyles, thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
We will be listening to you tomorrow morning. Once again, 14 days old, we still don't have a suspect. We don't have a killer in custody. There are no arrests. And from what we've heard from the police chief, there's nothing upcoming anytime soon. Back to you, Lyndon.
All right, Brian Cabell in Boulder, thank you. So who killed JonBenét? It's a question for the police to answer and for the media to ask. And maybe there's a question for all of us to ask ourselves. Why has this killing in particular so riveted and repulsed an entire nation? And as you mull that over, consider this. The Children's Defense Fund says 13 children are killed in the United States every day. Few attract national attention. All, like JonBenét, are desperately missed. I'm Lyndon Souls. Thank you for joining us.